Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Wilmington Biz Talk. I'm Vicki Janowski, editor of the Greater Wilmington Business Journal, and today we're talking with Amy Beatty, who's Community Services Director for the City of Wilmington. We'll be talking about the new Riverfront Park that's opening downtown and the road it took to get here, as well as plans for it coming up. As always, we will be keeping an eye on our Facebook feed as you watch this on our live stream. So if you have any questions about the park or for Amy, feel free to keep those in mind and post them in there and I'll pass them along. Meanwhile, while you're doing that and thinking about the questions you're going to ask and contribute to that, we're going to hear a quick word from our sponsors, Cape Fear Realtors.
Hello, I'm Ann Gardner, CEO of Cape Fear Realtors. Realtors support this program's efforts to connect our community in meaningful dialogue with actionable insights. Realtors are dedicated professionals who build strong, resilient communities and businesses. Work with someone you can trust. Work with a realtor. Learn more at capefear.realtor.
Okay, so today we're talking about Riverfront Park, which is a more than 6-acre park that's been developed down on the Cape Fear River in downtown Wilmington. But more than just a neighborhood park, this really is being viewed and has been planned for many, many years as something that's going to draw hundreds, if not thousands of people to events down there, as well as probably prompt some more additional development and activity to that area of the northern waterfront park. So ahead of their grand opening, after many years of working on this project, we thought this was a great week to invite Amy Beatty from the city to come talk to us a little bit about it. Amy was our cover subject and was kind enough to talk with us for our Wilmington Biz magazine and the latest issue coming out about the park and its progress in our cover story for the edition that should be out to subscribers now and out online later today. So Amy, I just want to start off, and we should go ahead and let everybody know that because this is Zoom Life, you are having some video problems connecting, but that's fine because we're going to take that as an opportunity to maybe share some of the photos of progress from the park's construction along the way and share with our viewers what that looks like as well. But just to kick us off, could you go ahead and just let us know where you're working on this week and how you're getting ready for the big event this weekend?
Sure. Thank you for having me back. It's a pleasure. We are all hands on deck this week, finishing up some major points of construction. Our contractor is going through inspections and permit processes right now. He had a few more inspections this morning. The one that I am most excited about is for our water feature. So that we get approval to turn that on this weekend. I can't wait. So there will be a few areas of unfinished work, but that's okay. I don't think it's going to diminish anybody's experience at the grand opening event. And those include some of our garden areas and the road that will be along the eastern edge of the park. Everything else will be open and accessible, and we just can't wait to show it off.
Great. So I'm going to show a photo that one of our photographers, TJ Dreschel, shot a couple months ago for folks who maybe have not been downtown recently or haven't seen how large this site is that we're talking about, this park. So just to get a sense of scale and what we're looking at here. So this is the Cape Fear River, the PPD building bordering on one side of it. And on the left, we have the new amphitheater, which is going to be a significant venue for downtown live music and events. So this was taken a couple months ago, and we'll share in a couple minutes maybe more what it looks like right now. But as we're looking at this, Amy, can you talk a little bit about this piece of property and how it came to turn into a city park of this size?
Sure. This site was originally planned to be a half-acre park at the corner of Harnett Street there, so the very southeast portion of the park. And we worked with developers in the northern end of downtown to amend a development agreement. We had a particular property owner that desired for the Riverwalk to be transferred in its location, be shifted just a bit to be in front of the Marina Grill. And so in exchange for that, the city requested a larger piece of public property dedicated for a park. And we ended up with a much bigger space, 6.5 acres. And this is actually the piece of property that was identified at one time to be a candidate for a minor league baseball stadium. And that was a referendum that was put to the public for a vote, and it got defeated pretty soundly, which was a disappointment for a lot of people at the time, but I think ended up being fortuitous because now we have a public park that everyone can enjoy, and it's a much more flexible space. And it was supported also by a bond referendum, 2-1, and one in every precinct. And so it's really the public's park, and we're excited to wrap it up and get the public in the park.
And that's interesting that you mentioned the baseball stadium at this site, which is where we had talked about it years ago about potentially being, a catalyst development for the area around the northern riverfront. And that's something that our assistant editor, CC Nunn, points out in the cover story, and in talking to Mayor Saffo, and I've heard him make this point before, of that ballpark not only fulfilling a recreational need and catering to baseball enthusiasts or families that wanted to go out, but was also seen as something that could attract business and activity to this part of the river that went past PPD, where there really wasn't much going on past the convention center and past the PPD headquarters. But if you look around in this photo, you'll see these apartment complex that over recent years has gone vertical around this area. And really that investment kind of came in on its own without the ballpark there. But I say all that to ask you next, though, you have a lot of apartments there and a lot of folks who are moving to downtown. When you guys talk about the park and its potential for what it's going to do to that area, how does it come up in terms of meeting like recreational needs or quality of life needs to people who are moving in large numbers really to these downtown units?
Yeah, to your point, we think it will do just that, and we think it already has begun to do that. So it truly is, in addition to a park and economic development project. And so we're in this photo, we're seeing some, can you go back to the, thank you. In this photo, you see the Sawmill Apartments to the left of your screen. And then next to those, you see Flats on Front. And then if you swing to the opposite side of the picture on the right, you can see just the tip of Pier 33 Apartments. So importantly, 2 out of those 3 apartments projects were announced after the city had announced plans for this park and what was going to be in this park. And there are 2 parcels remaining. You can sort of see there where the parks building and restroom is, sort of in the middle to the right of the photo. Those 2 parcels on either side are going to go under construction in early August. And so that is going to be another residential building on the parcel next to the river. And the other parcel is going to be a parking garage that's going to serve those residents. And we're also in talks with the developer about shared parking for concert goers there as well. And then outside of, direct construction surrounding the project, we're also going to see an economic benefit of more folks coming to Wilmington to see shows, and Wilmingtonians spending more of their money in Wilmington versus having to drive to Charlotte or Raleigh for a concert. And it's funny, I was speaking to the Wilmington Area Hospitality Association recently. And so that's a lot of our hotel managers, et cetera, and the Convention and Visitors Bureau. And once Widespread Panic was announced, which is the first concert from Live Nation, January 16th, 17th, and 18th, that concert, all 3 nights sold out within a few hours, I believe. And so not only did our downtown hotels immediately begin filling up, but Midtown and Mayfair hotels did as well, to the point where hotel managers were calling the Convention and Visitors Bureau and saying, hey, what's going on here? Why am I getting all these calls all of a sudden for these hotel nights? So there's that aspect of it. And then really important, I think, to a lot of city leaders and myself is downtown businesses that had to suffer through the ongoing restrictions related to COVID. We really hope and think that those businesses, bars, restaurants, et cetera, will see an impact from the concert patrons spending their dollars downtown.
Okay, and yeah, let me switch to this view too that we were looking at earlier. So this is facing the river, the Cape Fear River downtown. And again, I want to point out that these are our photos that we took for the story a couple months ago. So it's not what it looks like right now going into the opening weekend. But I was curious, someone mentioned this at a networking thing when we were talking about the park opening. How unusual is it for a waterside, either riverside or coastal side city to have a venue like this that's on the waterfront? For example, I know some of our other peer cities that are on the river, the coast, will have a performing venue or large park like this, but it's not always necessarily downtown. It's not always necessarily walkable to downtown restaurants and hotels like you mentioned.
You're right, it is unique. And I think that we can thank our present and previous city leaders who, number one, sought to develop the Riverwalk, that in and of itself, and we know the awards and the recognition that it's received, almost 2-mile river walk that is for the public, that in and of itself, to have that much public access for that long of a stretch on a riverfront downtown, we're so lucky and fortunate to have that. And I don't think we take that for granted. And so similarly, to have the forethought, I know that the mayor mentions it frequently. He thought it was important for the public to own the last big piece of undeveloped land on the river downtown. And if you couple that with the fact that we also are really fortunate to have our great and well-loved boutique hotel at Greenfield Lake. So we have one amphitheater on the shores of an historic lake and park, and then we have this new modern amphitheater on the shores of the Cape Fear River. It's certainly unique and one of a kind, definitely throughout North Carolina and South Carolina.
And then since we're looking at kind of an older construction photo, well, first let me ask you, are there still pieces of it that are what's left still to be constructed and built and installed?
There are, yeah. So I mentioned, I think at the beginning of our program, that the 2 garden areas are not going to be complete for this weekend. We have the East Gardens, which is next to our playground and is the more manicured of the 2 areas. That will be partially done. We're actually going to be having the Cape Fear Garden Club. Some of their members are going to come in and help plant out that area on Saturday. So in between the ribbon cutting and our July 4th grand opening, we were very fortunate to receive a large grant from them, and they wanted to be very involved in the planting. So we're fortunate to provide them with that opportunity this Saturday. I mentioned the road that is along the eastern side of the park will not be done yet. It will be done before the first concert on July 16th. We were sailing along with this park and then hit some really rough weather in terms of rain, both in February and in May, and then also got hit with some COVID delays in these last couple of months with supply chains. And so that's what delayed our road. And then lastly, the West Gardens, which is the southwestern corner of the park, which is the more natural coastal vegetative area, will not be done in time for the grand opening. That's really the area where our contractor is backing out of the construction site. As more and more gets built in the park, that squeezes them pretty tight in their footprint. So that will not yet be done, but will again be done in time before the first concert. And then just as a reminder to people, the main entrance to the park is called the Nut Street Promenade, and in its finished condition, it's going to be a pedestrian roadway with wide sidewalks and pavers and street trees and street lamps. However, right now we're just going to pave that. And that's because the two construction projects that I mentioned that are immediately adjacent to there, which are going to begin in August, they would have had to have torn all of that stuff out. So we're just going to put some asphalt down, and then that developer will construct the rest of our park for us as a part of their project under a reimbursement agreement.
And you mentioned some of the construction challenges. I believe that pushed out the timeline and the cost as well throughout this project, just because the project overlapped so many years. I remember the Business Journal we covered when this was first introduced years and years ago, just kind of looking at what it might look like and getting some architects and landscape architects around too to see what their ideas were. But I feel like we had that story several years ago. So things kind of changed along the way, and you guys hit some challenges just like everyone else has in terms of construction costs as well, right?
Sure. Originally this was envisioned to be a $24 million project. And as we were coming to the end of design and asking council to award the contract, construction prices just started skyrocketing. And so, that's when the economy was just booming pre-COVID. We started construction in the fall of 2019. And Wilmington just doesn't have the market to have this many cranes in the air at once with this much construction going on. So that was driving the prices up. We did bring some cost containment strategies to City Council, such as lower grade materials and finishes. And they felt if we were going to engage in an investment project like this, that it needs to be first class, top-notch materials. So they did not pull back on that. And then, it has been challenging, a challenging construction site. Anytime you're building something downtown and you're in the ground, you never know what you're going to find. Obviously, we knew that this was a brownfield project, and so that always drives costs up because you can't move your dirt around offsite. This project has a extensive amount of infrastructure underground, so lots of things that people will never see that were very expensive, like bringing public water into the site, sewer, an extensive stormwater system, and we were having to puzzle piece all of that within 3 existing Cape Fear Public Utility Authority easements on site. So I'm really proud of the team behind this, our design team and our construction team, for getting a project like this complete in 18 months during a pandemic. I would have told you I didn't think it could happen, but it did. And knock on wood, with a couple of weeks here left, within budget.
And let's talk a little bit more about those concerts and working with Live Nation. I'm going to share my screen again one more time so you all can see kind of, this is a photo from the city that shows what it looks like with the lawn now implemented. So you're going to have lawn seating as well as dedicated seating up front. And can you remind everybody again, what's the capacity for shows using this space?
The capacity is 7,200, 24 temporary fixed seating and 4,800 lawn.
And then the city is contracted with Live Nation to manage the amphitheater, or just manage the promotion and booking of the amphitheater?
And then they'll actually manage the amphitheater. So that building that you're seeing to the right of the stage there, those will have Live Nation offices in there. And so they are on site, as well as having city recreation and park staff on site every day.
Okay, and you mentioned widespread panic earlier, and that was extremely quick sellout. And then in recent weeks, there's been kind of a domino of announcements, which maybe you guys maybe have been waiting for the go ahead to announce all these acts, but from Lady A and Trevor Noah and Harry Connick Jr., just a variety of people coming in. Is that kind of the slate of what you're looking at for performers right now, or are there more announcements to be expected for shows?
There are more announcements to be expected, and we find out, the city finds out when everybody else finds out. So it's
Oh, really?
exciting for us when something new is announced. We have all the dates and the expected attendance, but we don't learn the artists until everyone else does. And so, yeah, Live Nation knew that this market was going to be a good one. That's why they invested in it. But they've said the response has even surprised them. They have filled all of their 20 slots allowed by their contract already. There's potential for a few more if the city manager wants to authorize it. Obviously, we're having a very compressed season this year since we're not starting until mid-July. In future years, the shows will be spread out a little more, but yeah, they're expecting, all told, with tickets currently sold and projections for the ones that haven't been on sale yet, 130,000 concert patrons this season, which is up 50,000 from 80,000 was their projection during design. So I think this first season is gonna start off with a bang.
And then, I mean, this is definitely a unique season for other reasons as well. I have not personally been to a concert yet, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the Azalea Festival rescheduled concerts look like down there with the Avett Brothers. Are there additional things that are going to have to be put in place, or any COVID related protocols, or since it's outside, it's going to look more like a traditional concert? What have you guys talked about with that?
Yeah, since it's outside, it's going to look more like a traditional concert. There are no current restrictions either locally or from the governor. And so Live Nation is, planning on operating at capacity. And, in terms of other events, we are super excited for our July 4th grand opening event that is going to be open to the public, that the city and Live Nation are jointly running. And that's from 1 until 8. And we hope to see a lot of people out there. We think people are, just itching to get back outside after living under the restrictions for so long. And so that event is going to be family friendly. We've got a really diverse lineup of music that we're excited about, from hip hop and jazz to bluegrass. We've got Benny Hill Quartet, the Coastal Collective, Signal Fire, L-Shaped Lot. We have comedians. We'll have food, activities for kids, and our Cape Fear Craft Brewing Alliance is going to be there serving beer.
I've heard this question come up, or maybe I read somewhere also. Will you be able to see the 4th of July fireworks downtown there, or will people move off the park side?
I'm glad you asked that question. The park is actually not a good viewing area for the fireworks. They are blocked by the Embassy Suites. So we are closing down the park after the event. Again, it's from 1 to 8. And then we hope people meander downtown, maybe visit a bar and a restaurant, and then view the fireworks from the traditional places everybody has always.
All right, Amy. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. Even with our technical difficulties, I think that's a lot of information people have been talking about and looking to see about what's coming up for the future of the park down there. And if you want to read more about how the park came together and a more in-depth interview with Amy, like I mentioned earlier, you can go to wilmingtonbizmagazine.com. Our latest issue will be up today. Subscribers may have already seen the printed copy in their mailboxes and read all about it and seen the photos of the construction on the way. But we encourage everyone else, if you want to learn more about the plans for it and what's gone into it, feel free to pick up the copy, as well as see the other stories in the latest issue of the magazine. Thanks for joining us today. A slightly different day than we normally do it. And that's, of course, as Amy mentioned, because they're all hands on deck for the event this weekend. But be sure to join us again next week on Wilmington Biz Talk. And if you want to catch up on any of the previous episodes or topics of discussion, you can go to wilmingtonbiztalk.com or grab this podcast off your favorite streaming platform. Thanks, everybody, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you.